outraged by the capture of their leader, Abdullah Öcalan, has led to the first fatalities, with 3 of them shot dead today in Berlin. And Kurds in London, who are still barricaded inside the Greek embassy, said they too were willing to die for the cause. In Berlin, Kurds had stormed the Israeli consulate after reports that Israel had helped Turkey track down the rebel leader to Kenya, where he'd been hiding in the residence of the Greek ambassador. Israel says its security guards in Berlin opened fire in self-defense and denies any involvement in the Öcalan affair. Our special correspondent Ben Brown reports on the day's events.
Kurds across Europe have shown again today they're perfectly prepared to die in their protests against the capture of Abdullah Öcalan. In the German city of Hamburg, they fought running battles with riot police, apparently undaunted by water cannon. Some of the protesters ransacked a building belonging to Germany's ruling Social Democrats and took this man hostage. But in Berlin, the violence was far worse. 3 Kurds were shot dead and many more injured after they and other demonstrators tried to storm Israel's consulate in the city. The Israelis say their security guards had no choice but to open fire on the Kurds, who they claim were armed with hammers and clubs.
We regret the loss of life. Any loss of life is regrettable and tragic. We hope that calm will prevail. And I repeat once again that Israel had nothing whatsoever to do, absolutely nothing, with the apprehending of Öcalan, the Kurdish leader.
In London, Kurdish demonstrators staged a silent protest when they heard of the deaths in Berlin. Dozens of Kurds are still occupying the Greek embassy here in the capital. From its rooftop, they claim today they're on hunger strike and showed off what appeared to be petrol bombs. Armed officers are surrounding the building in the fashionable Holland Park area. It is tense, but so far police have been happy to negotiate with the protesters inside, both face-to-face and by telephone.
We have got good communication with them. We're still seeking a positive outcome, and we believe that's what we will achieve. It's just that we'll have to be patient, I think, before we finally resolve it.
One hostage is still being held here, a junior official at the embassy. Police have sent food into him, and when the BBC got through to him on the phone today, he told us he was not being harmed.
Never tied me up. The only thing, they treated me very well. Of course I want to leave now, because I'm 2 days here.
We also spoke by phone to one of the Kurds holding him hostage. He told us they're demanding that Britain helps ensure the safety of Abdullah Öcalan.
We just want the British government the urgently request from the Turkish government to ensure the physical safety of the Mr. Öcalan, and also we want them to request from the Turkish government to say that to treat him as a prisoner of the war rather than as a terrorist.
Outside the embassy, hundreds more Kurdish demonstrators are continuing their protest too. Among them, the father of a 15-year-old girl who set fire to herself here yesterday. I didn't want to see my daughter burn, says Süleyman Çoskun, but she was so angry at the treatment of the Kurds. I am very proud of her. Tonight, another demonstrator outside the London embassy also tried to set fire to himself. He apparently doused his clothes in petrol, but police dragged him away before he could light them. And there were more scuffles in the street. While Kurds in other European cities may have given up their protests, in London they refused to. At the end of day 2 of this demonstration, there's little sign that these Kurds are prepared to abandon their protest. And those who are barricaded inside the embassy building itself are insisting that if there's any attempt by the police to storm it, then they will set fire to themselves. Ben Brown, BBC News, at the Greek embassy in London.
In Turkey, many welcomed the capture of Abdullah Öcalan. For years, the country's most wanted man. Turkish television showed videotape of Öcalan aboard the plane from Kenya with the special forces who captured him. He is now being held in an island prison where there are no other inmates. From the Turkish capital, Ankara, Jeremy Bowen reports.
The Turkish agents celebrated as they brought Abdullah Öcalan back on a small private jet. He lay bound and blindfolded next to them. Turkey says Öcalan is a dangerous terrorist responsible for the deaths of tens of thousands of people. To prove that his power has gone, the authorities released these pictures of his humiliation. An agent says, "Welcome back, Abdullah Öcalan. How are you feeling?" He says he has a stomachache. "Don't worry," the agent says, "we'll cure that when we get home." Then Öcalan says, "Perhaps I can help you. Honestly, I really love Turkey and the Turkish people, as well as the Kurds." Then he was led back to Turkish soil to face trial. 20 years on the run were over. On him they found a Greek Cypriot diplomatic passport in a false name. Öcalan is now being held on this prison island off the coast of Istanbul. He faces execution. The other prisoners are being moved to jails on the mainland. The Turks are taking no chances. The Uzbek family went to visit the grave of their son Ismail in Ankara cemetery after they heard that Öcalan was in custody. Ismail was a policeman, 31 years old, when he was killed last August in a shootout with the PKK, the Kurdish separatist group Öcalan founded and led. As we left the cemetery, it became clear that, like many, perhaps most Turks, they want more than justice. They want revenge. In their home, Emsal, the dead policeman's sister, took his picture from the Turkish flag in which it had been wrapped since his funeral. Ismail's father said Öcalan must suffer as we have suffered. His execution would be something for us to celebrate. Ismail's mother said Öcalan should be tortured to death and then set on fire. "I don't want any other mothers to go through what I have, and I want God to finish his organization." In Istanbul last night, Kurds rioted when they heard that Öcalan had been captured. Heavy security is in place to stop all this happening again. Tonight, officials worked late at the Prime Minister's office in Ankara. After 15 years of war, the Turkish government believes it has a chance to finish off the PKK once and for all. After what's been happening here and across Europe, some Kurdish separatists will want to retaliate. The question, though, is whether the PKK can even function without its leader. The Turkish government believes it's scored a big victory. Jeremy Bowen, BBC News, Ankara.
Here, there were signs today that the government is rethinking its policy towards